Yo, what's up, everybody? How you doing? Happy Friday. Let's see. Let's get this mic in position. All right. Let me get the chat set up. Hope you guys are doing well. All right. Let's see. Top chat. No, we want all chat. All right. Right off the bat, we got a couple questions on the chat. All right. I'll get to those in just a sec. You guys see I'm rocking the LA Dodgers gear. Oh, got this at the game. Got this at a game. I'm feeling a little homesick today for LA. I've just been feeling that way this week. So I thought I'd rock the LA Dodgers gear. Yeah, I know it might trigger some of you. Guess what? I don't give a shit. Go ahead and be triggered. Because you know what? The Dodgers got ripped off in that World Series against the Houston Astros. You Houston people know you cheated. All right, I'll get over it. Okay, let's get right to this. So last week I asked you guys to drop me some questions. I kind of made it part of a video about Paulie Malignaggi and Devin Haney, so it got all convoluted. Some of you guys asked questions. I probably should have separated those two things into two different videos. Oh well. But I did get a lot of questions here on Facebook, Twitter, and of course YouTube. So I'll get to these. I thought it'd be more fun just to do it live. We'll do it live. Some of you guys won't get that reference because you're too young. Some of you might get it. We'll do it live. Just Google that. Okay, let's. A couple questions right here on the chat from USC Trojan Zone. He asked, "How did you meet Tiffany, and how did you develop a relationship with her?" I actually met Tiffany at a rooftop bar called the Perch in downtown LA. I'm trying to think of what neighborhood that's in. So you guys from LA, you'll know where the Perch is. It's downtown, and man, maybe a few blocks from the office I worked at, and her too. Hawker Mustang on the chat, Bill O'Reilly. That's right, man. There's a clip of Bill O'Reilly freaking out on his production people saying, "We'll do it live. Fuck it." It's worth checking out if you haven't seen it. It's just hilarious to watch old people freak out and yell. I don't know why I find that shit funny, but there's clips of like NFL coaches freaking out and throwing shit. Romeo Crennel, I think, was like, well, if you want to crowd him, he's knocking shit over. So I just find that shit funny. I don't know. Just watching grown men have temper tantrums, it's just funny to me. Anyway, back to this question. So that's where I met her, man. Rooftop bar. We had a couple drinks, and it just kind of went from there, man. It was really a great first date, and we ended up having a few drinks and walking down to Bottega Louie, I believe. You guys in LA will know Bottega Louie. We ended up getting a pizza there, splitting a pizza, having more drinks. It just turned into this chance meeting that was maybe going to last 15 minutes, ended up being hours. And yeah, it just went from there, bro. And what impressed me about Tiffany is she kind of demanded some things that a lot of other women in LA didn't demand. She kind of demanded I get to know her, where a lot of other girls in LA, they don't really give a shit. They were just like, hey, let's go have sex. And I was like, cool. And it was just like right to it. That's most LA women, most Southern California women. And not to diss, I'm just saying, it's the way it is. But Tiffany was very much like, well, you're going to get to know me a little bit if you want to work at this. So I was like, wow, I haven't run into a woman with this kind of attitude since I moved to California. This reminds me of girls back home. So I was just impressed by her and surprised. And before long, I was like, holy shit, I'm in a relationship. Well, goddamn. I just didn't expect it. It kind of just happened, man. And it was one of those things where maybe it was the right time for me. I was in my mid 30s by then, and I was just ready for that. Of course, I had met good women before that, wonderful women, but I was a piece of shit still. I wasn't ready to be with a good woman, so I maybe didn't treat some of those women right. And I had a great time with a lot of bad women. Oh boy, do I got some fucking stories. Trust me on that. So let's see. One other question here that I'll get to real quick in the chat. Spitwoody02 asks, did Vladimir Klitschko need Emmanuel Stewart to make him a great fighter? Do you think he could have improved otherwise after the losses? I do. I think Emmanuel Stewart is what helped make Vladimir Klitschko into a great fighter. Of course, you got to have if you're a horse racer, you got to have a great horse, and Vladimir Klitschko was, but you also need someone to mold that clay. You know what I'm saying, and make it a work of art. So I think when he got with Emmanuel Stewart, would Lennox Lewis have become the fighter he became without Emmanuel Stewart? I don't think so. I think Emmanuel Stewart was a great Hall of Fame trainer, and at that time, the training overseas was not as good as the training you got here in the USA. Now, that's a different situation. There are some absolutely great trainers in Europe, in the UK, throughout Latin America, of course, Mexico, forget about it, and even Canada, Japan, plenty of other parts of the world. But that wasn't necessarily the case 20 years ago. It was changing, but it wasn't where it is today, where some of the premier trainers in the world are not necessarily from North America. So different situation back then. All right, let me jump to some of these questions, man. I'll start with Facebook. Michael Barrios on Facebook. What's up, man? I hope you're doing well. I hope Stella's doing well. I hope the kid's doing well. He asked, do you think top fighters are going to be more or less willing to make the fights we want to see once they start up again? That's a great question, and that's something that every fight fan's wondering. Are these guys going to jump into tune-up fights, or start with tune-up fights, or jump right into the big fights? I think, I'm a pessimist on this one. And you could blame the promoters, but I think more of the blame goes on the fighters. I think more fighters are going to want kind of like a tune-up fight early on before they go into a big fight. Now, there are promoters that are going to want to delay the big fights as well. Even Bob Arum, he was quite honest about this in a recent interview where he was talking about the third fight between Wilder and Fury, but he also talked about Lomachenko Lopez and other fights where he's like, look, dude, those are pay-per-view fights, and we need the gate revenue to justify, what we're going to pay to compensate for what we're going to pay the fighters. And I think there is some legitimacy to that. If you can't put a fight on in Vegas and sell tickets, well, hell, there goes, $10, $20 million of your potential revenue. So what are you going to pay these guys with? Pay-per-view revenue? You can't depend on that anymore because most people are team stream. So the gate revenue is more important maybe than it's ever been. So maybe not ever, but it's up there. Gate revenue is important. So I do think that, look, guys, for the rest of the year, I'm starting to wonder if we get any big fights. We're going to get fights. Big fighters are going to fight, but are we going to have crowds for those fights? Can we have a Canelo Golovkin 3 in September? Will Vegas be ready for that? Will the casinos be ready for that? I hope so. I really do hope so. We're going to find out over the next month or so because some states are beginning to kind of reopen and get back to work. And depending on how the pandemic numbers increase or decrease or flatten or fatten, who knows? That will determine what happens over the next few months. But, I mean, clearly, boxing will come back probably in July. July, August, those are going to be closed studio type of fights. You're not going to get fight fans, and then big fights like Vegas, or you're trying to pack 15, 20,000 people into an arena. That's going to be tough. Now, there is the potential that you could take a Canelo Golovkin over to Saudi Arabia, where they don't give a shit if we're in a pandemic. They'll pack a stadium over there. They'll build something with slave labor, and you can put up a huge fight over there. Some people may be morally against that. Some people may not. But you could, in theory, do it. So it just remains to be seen. There's so many possibilities. It's all up in the air right now. On Facebook, John Gary Navita asked, who wins a fight between Spinks and Ezzard Charles at 175, both in their primes? Well, I don't know which Spinks, because there's more than one great fighter with the last name Spinks you're referring to, but I'd say either of the Spinks brothers. I got to go with my man Ezzard Charles. I think Ezzard Charles is underappreciated and underrated by a lot of fans. So I'm going to go with Ezzard Charles in that one. It's going the distance, but I like Ezzard Charles to beat either of the Spinks brothers. Donovan Casp asked, do you think Top Rank will open that video vault they have and broadcast lesser-known fights or the entire cards? That's a good question. Of course, you guys, Donovan's referring to the ESPN Plus app. the fight vault that Top Rank has. I don't think that they're going to open up entire cards. You're not going to get undercards and 4-rounders and stuff like that. They're never going to do that. They literally have thousands of those, and the app just doesn't have the bandwidth for that and the storage space. They're never going to do that. But are they going to add more fights? I do think that's possible. And I know that they've talked about that in the past. Some of the rights to certain fights, it can get a little tricky, but I do think they're going to add more fights to that. Nowhere near as much in regards to like showing the whole card. It's going to be nothing like what DAZN does, where you get, from the first fight to the 12th fight of the card. They're never going to do that. But yes, I agree. They need to show more fights. They need even putting some mid-level fights on. And then I think fights, take a superstar fighter and put on some of their fights when they were a prospect, when they were a mid-level contender. Put some of those fights on there. There's plenty of you guys out there who would love to see that shit. Twitter, Boxing Ego. I think this is of alt accounts because boxing is spelled with 2 G's. Boxing Ego asks, why is Triple G and team backing off the Canelo rematch? Perhaps they want to squeeze DAZN for more money, act like they are the A side to frustrate them, or frustrate Team Canelo. And or does he just know that this time he will lose badly and wants to delay the end? So this is referring to Jonathan Banks' recent interview saying that they're going to still go with their fight against the mandatory to keep that IBF belt. And they're going to do that before the fight with Canelo Alvarez. Look, again, all this stuff is speculation. We don't know. If you ask me, the overwhelming majority of fighters, promoters, networks, platforms are going to go ahead with the plans they already had rather than just changing the plan. So all the fights that we were going to get first, again, I referred to Errol Spence. They wanted him to fight Danny Garcia on pay-per-view on Fox before fighting Manny Pacquiao. Do I think suddenly next year they're going to go right into a fight between Spence and Pacquiao? No. You're still going to get Spence Garcia and probably Pacquiao against Mikey Garcia before those two eventually fight. That's what you're going to get. Do I think Canelo Alvarez will fight somebody like Billy Joe Saunders or someone before Golovkin? Yes, I do. Will Golovkin fight Zaberza, I think's the name, before he fights Canelo again? Yes. That's probably what's going to happen across the board. I don't think it's specific to Triple G. I don't like it. I don't love it, but I understand it. These promoters and these networks, they script what they want 6 to 18 to 24 months out. You guys may not think that, but that's what they're doing. Always strategizing down the road. And they try to build things, some more than others. Are the plans going to be altered because of the global pandemic to a certain degree? Of course. Timelines are going to change and certain things will be changed. I do think some fighters, maybe just under that superstar level, are going to be forced to maybe change their plans a little bit and go right into a difficult fight. That will happen. But with the superstar fighters that are pretty much writing their own checks, if you will, metaphorically, they're probably going to go ahead with the plans they already had. That's probably what's going to happen. As for Golovkin, again, as I've said several times, he's at a point in his career where he's sick of doing favors. He did that for over a decade. And is he turning into slightly a diva? Yeah, you can make that argument. I just look at him and I think of Miguel Cotto. I think he's kind of at the stage of his career that Miguel was at one point, where he kind of started saying, hey, man, I want to do things my way. I fought everybody, or I was willing to fight everybody, and I did favors for everyone. I made concessions for everyone. Now, guess what? You make the concessions for me, motherfucker. That's kind of where Gennady's at. And to a certain degree, I don't blame him. Not saying I love it. I'm just saying he's kind of at that point. Super Chat pledge from Harrison Property. Thank you so much, Harrison Property. I appreciate that. He asked, howdy, Mike. It's been a while. Question. When are you and Tiff getting married, and are we invited? Thanks, buddy. Well, thank you. So we actually were planning on doing it this August, and we were going to do a very small thing because we don't have any money right now. Every dime that I had, I put into this house and into this studio and the equipment that I'm coming to you live on right now. every dime I had. Tiff and I bought a car. I came out here with no car. We literally drove out here with one car, guys. And so I had to get a car. So I did buy a car. And then we bought this house. And that's it. And I'm, tens of thousands of dollars in debt on top of the house, but tens of thousands of dollars in debt renovating the house. There's the Home Depot card, the Lowe's card, the Floor and Decor card. They're all maxed out. So that's where I'm at currently. People think I'm rolling in dough. No, not necessarily. So anyway, we were just going to do something small for a wedding. We were literally going to go to the courthouse, invite a few family members to be witnesses, and just do that and plan to do our honeymoon in the future when we had some cash, whether it's 2 years from now, whether it's 5 years from now, whatever. That's when we'll do a real celebration. And we'll probably end up doing a few of them because, I got family and friends on the East Coast of the United States, and she has, of course, her family is back in San Diego, California, where she's from. And then I have a bunch of friends in Los Angeles. So we'd probably do like a East Coast thing and a West Coast thing. So we'll figure all that out in the future. But the plan is to do it in August. Will the courthouses be open back up by then? Will we get put on a backlog? I don't know. But that's when it's scheduled to happen, my man. And of course, I'll share with you guys all the wonderful news once it's official and I'm an honest man after years of being a piece of shit. Okay. The YouTube questions. I'll get to these questions here that you guys asked on the video last week. Okay. And then I'll get to some questions here on the chat as well. Okay. YouTube. Renee Salcido asked, I live in Southern California. Why are all the liquor stores owned by foreigners from the Middle East? And then Mario G asked a very similar question. Mike, I live in LA. Why are all the motels owned by Indians? I don't know if you guys are trolling with this shit or not, but I don't know about you. Okay, Renee's question about the liquor stores being owned by foreigners from the Middle East. Well, I lived in Koreatown, and most of the liquor stores there were owned by foreigners from Korea. So maybe it's the neighborhood you're living in. Mario asked, why are all the motels owned by Indians? I've never seen that in LA. I don't know. Again, maybe it's the neighborhood you're in. Guys, LA is the most diverse big city in America by far. Way more diverse than New York, way more diverse than Chicago. And it's one of the most diverse alpha cities on earth. So there are neighborhoods of there's a little Bangladesh in LA, a little Bangladesh. It's right next to Koreatown. It's right next to Little Armenia. And there's also a Filipino town right next to that. It's crazy. So a lot of that breaks down to your neighborhood. But honestly, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit where they're from? Do you like the hotel? Do you like the liquor store? Does the shit, have good prices? Who gives a damn where they're from? All right. Silvio Silcan asked 2 questions. He asked, Duran versus Chavez Sr., who do you pick and which weight suits one or the other? Damn. Whew. Man, oh man, that's a tough question. Look, at 135, I'm going with Roberto Duran. I have to. I know it's going to trigger a lot of you, but yeah, that's just how I go. 140 or north of that, I'm going to go with Chavez Sr. So I think a lot of that will come down to which weight it's at and where both men are at in their careers. But depending on the weight, the location, all that kind of stuff, how much or how little is Don King involved, those guys could fight 20 times and split it down the middle 10 times. It all depends. But at 135, I got to go with Roberto Duran. I just have to. Let's see. Second question. Ever get in trouble with the police and why? Of course. Of course I got in trouble with the police. I've been arrested twice. I think I've shared some of my mugshots on Twitter, on the internet. I think, you know what? If you guys want to see, I could maybe retweet a couple mugshots. I look really different in those mugshots. You probably will not recognize me. I looked very different back then. But of course, I've been in trouble with the cops a couple times. As one of my uncles once told me, at some point, every guy gets arrested. At some point, every man gets arrested once. It's no big deal. For me, it's actually twice. And it was just a couple one-nighters. I got some good stories of being in the holding cell and all that. I'll tell you one real quick. I'm not going to tell you what I did to get in there, though. I can't tell you guys all that. But, hey, look, I used to be a bad boy. Now I'm a pussy, whatever. The old Mike could beat the shit out of this Mike. Although I do have that old man strength now. So maybe my old man strength could beat up the younger Mike. I don't know. It would just depend on the day that we fought, maybe 50-50. Anyway, I was in jail with my boy. And actually, my boy that I just saw a couple weeks ago, who works in welding now and welded me a speed bag platform. I'm building a speed bag. I'll show you guys that as I finish it. It's going to be dope. I got a big ass wood platform that's like 3 inches thick. Oh my god, it's going to be dope. Anyway. So I actually saw this guy a couple weeks ago, but me and him were in jail together, and we were just in a holding cell. And there was these two drunk dudes that kept passing out, and they'd wake up and start beating the shit out of each other. They were so mad at each other. But they were so drunk that after beating the shit out of each other for about 5 minutes, they'd knock each other out and black out again. And then they'd wake up and beat the shit out of each other and black out again. And they did this like 3 or 4 times. So like me and my boy and then other guys in the cell, we started taking bets on who was going to win. And then we actually tied their shoes together. So when they got up the next time, they both fell down. One of the dudes cracked his head open. But they came around asking, who did this? And everyone kept their mouth shut. But anyway, it was kind of fun. These two drunk assholes really entertained me one night. But yeah, of course. And by the way, I've actually had cops put hands on me. I had police. I had one cop hit me in the back of the leg, right behind my knee with a blackjack. That shit hurt so bad. Holy shit. He whacked the fuck out of me with that thing. I immediately dropped to my knees. I had one cop reach his hand in the car and grab me by the collar and try to pull me out of the car. I had my fucking seatbelt on, so my head slammed into the window was open, of course, but the little bar behind the window, my head slammed into that. And my girlfriend at the time was in the car, screaming and crying. This is before everyone had a smartphone, so she couldn't film this. But she was like, I'm going to fucking tell everybody, you motherfucker. As he's doing this, trying. And I'm like, I got my seatbelt on, cocksucker. What the fuck you doing? Trying to rip me out of the goddamn car. The car was in fucking drive because this cop pulled me over and I got a little lippy. And he wrote me a ticket and I went to take off. And as I took off, I spun my tires out and he didn't like that. So he ran after me and grabbed, anyway. I made a few mistakes with the police and got some hands put on me a couple times. Those things happen. People act like that shit don't happen a lot. It does happen a lot. Depends on the neighborhood you're in. Me and one of my boys were cutting through an alley once, taking a shortcut to my house. There was this alley we used to cut through. And boom, these cops stopped us and spotlights in the car, everything. And they came and ripped us out of the fucking car, threw us up against the wall, got really rough and aggressive with us. I guess we fit the description. Some place just got hit in the neighborhood, and we fit the description of the guys. So, they're pulling me out of the car. What the fuck you doing in this neighborhood? I'm like, I live, a couple blocks from here. Oh, okay. And the problem is they searched my car. I had a bunch of fucking this is back when I was running some credit card scams and I had a bunch of merchandise in my car, which included a lot of porno tapes. I used to get bootleg pornos and sell them, and I did all kinds of nasty shit. I was probably 18. There was no way I should have had all this shit in my car. But the cops looked at it and they were just like, what the fuck you doing with this? Well, and they ended up just taking all that shit. They just took it. They were like, oh shit, they're looking at this is back when it was tapes, actual VHS. And they're like, what do you have? And I'm like, oh, that's my dad's. It's my dad let me have it. I bought all this shit, for free, and I was selling it. They took like 100 porn tapes, just took it with them. They didn't write up nothing. They just said, you know what, this shit's ours, and they just like, you cocksuckers. They did shit like that to me a bunch of times, and I just took it home and enjoyed it. All right, anyway, that's enough police stories. Before I incriminate myself further, next question, Neil the Security. He asked, dude, you asked a bunch of questions. So I'm not going to get to all these, but you asked a few good ones. He asked, did you ever witness any strange phenomena or anything paranormal? I have actually, dude. Look, I don't believe in any of that shit. I'm not really a religious person or anything like that, but I have seen some shit that I was like, I can't explain this. My first apartment wasn't in the best neighborhood. I was, 18, 19 years old. And funny shit used to happen, man. Lights would turn on and off. The TV would turn on and off by itself. I shit you not. TV would just turn on and off. Channel would change. It was a really skinny apartment, but it had an upstairs and a downstairs. And right in the living room, there was a stairway to go upstairs, and there was like a little bedroom up there. And I used to, I'd be sleeping upstairs, and I'd hear cupboards slam, shit slamming all the time. I'd be like, what the fuck? I go in there, turn on the light, cabinets would be open. I'm not making this shit up. Fucking cabinets opened up. So, long story short, I had a friend of a friend who could get information, this kind of stuff. And I ended up finding out a family got murdered in that fucking apartment. I'm not making this shit up. Apparently, at least one of them was stabbed. I don't know how the rest died. But it was a family that got fucking killed. And I'm telling you, I don't believe in any of this stuff. I don't believe in ghosts. I just don't believe in it. But I just, one of my boys is like, dude, if there's something there, just talk to it. And one day, I was in the living room, and I just basically said, look, I said it much nicer than this. I'm going to paraphrase for you guys, but I basically said, look, you motherfuckers are dead. And I'm not trying to disrespect you. I'm living here now. You got to move the fuck on, but you're dead, and you have to understand that. And I swear to God, the shit stopped after that. So I don't know. Maybe someone was playing some kind of prank on me. I just telling you, there was some weird shit. And then the night my grandma Frazier died on my dad's side, the sink kept turning on and off. Besides that, I have walked into places before where I'm like, yo, I don't like the energy of this place. Just bad vibes in this place. That has happened too. But yeah, I don't know, dude. That shit could probably all be explained somehow. I mean, maybe something was, a draft in the house or something like that, because these were very thin, shitty, fake wood cabinets. Maybe there was just a draft or something. I don't know. But I definitely have seen some weird shit that I can't really explain. He also asked, if you had to choose how the world will end, how would it be? Number 1, a major flood. Number 2, an asteroid impact. Number 3, nuclear. Number 4, supervolcano. Number 5, virus outbreak. Damn, dude. That's some dark shit. If I had to choose, I'd choose number 2, asteroid impact. I'm talking a massive one that basically blew up the fucking Earth, because that'd be very, very quick and people wouldn't suffer. All these other ones you mentioned, there'd be way too many people suffering. So I'm going to go with the asteroid impact. He asks, do you believe in reincarnation? What are your thoughts on deja vu? I've had deja vu just like everybody else. I've seen some shows, and I love watching stuff about science and history and all that. And apparently there's an evolutionary reason or cause to deja vu. It's tied to evolution somehow from back when we were monkeys and shit. But reincarnation, I'm not sure, again, I'm not a religious person, but here's the one thing I can't answer as an atheist. What makes me alive and this microphone dead? Well, I have life. I have energy. I consume energy from the food chain, and then I emit energy, right? When I die, no longer am I consuming or emitting energy. I'm basically this microphone, except I, biodegrade. But where does that energy go? Because according to science law, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So I can't answer that. And that's where there's that little nugget in me that's like, well, what if that energy is recycled somehow by the universe and goes on to do something else? I don't know. Because we haven't yet answered where that energy goes when you die. Now, if you look at the history of the universe, every single particle in your body, every bit of matter that makes you or this microphone or this hat is from exploded supernovae from every corner of the universe over billions of years. So if you think about it, you're built out of stardust. Exploded stars built what you are right now. All the elements in your body, the iron in your blood, all these different things come from exploded stars. That's energy, an explosion, and that eventually became what you are. Think about it, man. The universe recycles everything. So perhaps, when I die, if I died out in the woods somewhere and no one ever found me, my body would rot, or some animals would eat it. It'd fertilize the earth, or my body rots. It'd feed some animals that go on. So that would be me kind of being recycled into the earth, and then maybe that energy in me goes somewhere else and recycles, and who knows? I'm not against any of that necessarily. Does anyone on earth have the answer to any of this shit? Fuck no. He asks, did you ever have sleep paralysis? Yes, I have. Everyone's had that. What's your favorite animal? Uh, I guess dogs. I love dogs. I'd love to have a dog right now. I'm just not done renovating this house. But Tiffany and I love dogs. So we'll be those, creepy weirdos. We're taking a walk or some shit, and some couple walks up with their little golden retriever, and I'm like, "Hey, puppy," and I'll pet it and shit. And I'm like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" To the people, you know what I'm saying? So I'm that guy. I love the animals, but I think I like dogs the most because, I'm not a cat guy. Cats don't do anything. They're fucking gerbils. They're bigger gerbils. Let's see. What animal would scare you most if you encountered it? Probably a bear. You don't hear many people encountering a bear and doing very well with it. Yeah, Barrios says cats are useless. Yeah, man. Cats, they're like a bigger gerbil. They're useless. My sister has 2 cats, and I love fucking with them. Let's see. If you could witness any major event that happened in the past, what would it be? Damn, that's a good question. Um, I don't know if there's any one single event. What I would love to do, and I don't know if this could be done, obviously not, but I'm just saying, if, we're just hypothetically here, if I could be like surrounded in a safety bubble where nothing could hurt me, I could breathe fine, I would love to watch like a montage of the earth coming together. Because, I mean, literally, stardust collected over thousands of years into boulders that smashed into each other and created meteors that smashed into each other and created protoplanets, which smashed into each other and created planets. I'd love to see that fucking process in, like, sped up, obviously, like a simulation from afar. Just watch that shit happen. And then just watch the origins of life on Earth. I want to know, like, the first life on Earth, where that shit came from, how it happened. And then to watch the first time our ancestors left the ocean and went onto land. The first time Cro-Magnons bumped into Neanderthals. What the fuck happened? I just kind of like to have this whole history of the world, but be able to sit back like a fly on the wall and just watch the shit. That would be fucking cool. He asks, do you believe in aliens? Okay, well, this is a loaded question. Do I believe that there's other life in the universe? Fuck yeah. Math, bro. Just do math, okay? If you just look at the odds, yeah, there's got to be life out there. There fucking has to be. But are there aliens on Earth? No. People like the conspiracy theories. I think aliens are running the government, bro. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Come on. I don't know why I mentioned Arnold. He's no longer in government. I watched an Arnold video with his donkeys on Facebook just before this video. But like, people think that aliens have infiltrated our world. People, think about this. You've mastered intergalactic travel. You've found out how to bend and warp the fabric of space-time and go faster than the speed of light. You've defied all physics as we know it. You've, figured out what's inside a black hole, and you've traveled unbelievably long distances, millions of light years, to come to an insignificant planet in an insignificant galaxy, an insignificant solar system. Also, you can beam up some fucking hick in the middle of nowhere and probe his asshole. That makes no fucking sense. Yet, there's millions and billions of dollars that is made from making these movies and documentaries, and people are like, oh shit, man. Dude, proof. It's in a book. It has to be real. There are aliens. It's in a book. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Think about it. Would we probe ants? Yes. Do we dissect ants and look at what they're made of to learn more about them and shit? Yes, of course. But do we probe their asshole? Do we do experiments on their eyeballs? No. We observe. Could it be possible that some life form billions of light years away, is observing us somehow? Possibly. But it just doesn't make any sense, okay? I don't think aliens are living on the planet. That's nuts. And then last question from Neil. You asked a lot more than this. This is the last one I'm going to answer. What is your favorite genre when it comes to documentaries? History and science. I love history, especially human history, and I love science, especially space. I love, as you guys can tell, some of the things I just talked about. I love space. Just thinking about the trillions upon trillions of tiny little miracles that had to take place just for the Earth to be built. I think it's just fascinating. Super chat pledge from Neil. Oh, he's on the super chat. Thank you so much, Neil. I appreciate it. He says, thanks for the answers. Dude, some great questions there. I'm sorry I can't get to all of them. I could have did an hour-long video just with your questions. So good stuff, bro. And thank you for the super chat. Okay, Deed34401 asks, okay, boxing question. He says, I'm still curious about why some individuals think Triple G is ducking, he puts that in quotes, Jermall Charlo and Demetrius Andre, considering that both of them have not fought one or more top 10 guys at 160. Andre beat Solecki, but that's it for him. Martin Murray, a fighter Golovkin beat, who is always placed in the top 10 when he was a middleweight, is a far better name than anybody Charlo or Andrade have fought. Murray lost a very close competitive fight with Sergio Martinez. That was in Argentina. I think he dropped him twice in that fight. In a controversial draw with Felix Sturm. That is true. Both of whom avoided Gennady Golovkin. That is true. I would say Martinez avoided him. Felix Sturm flat out ducked the dude, shamelessly ducked him. So, yes, so where does the theory of Triple G apparently avoiding these guys come from? That's easy, Deed. It comes from people who don't like Triple G and want to see him lose. That's it. And they're hoping that even if Charlo and Andre don't beat him, they soften him up enough to where he'll eventually lose. Also, if these same people, let's say if Charlo fought Golovkin and scored a knockout win over Triple G, these same people that were hating on Triple G all those years would suddenly be like, man, Triple G was the shit. And my boy Charlo spanked that ass. Charlo's an all-time great. That's how these things work, my man. Fricky924 asks, who do you think would win between Joe Frazier and Anthony Joshua? I think a lot of people underestimate height and reach advantage in boxing. Oh, and he was referring to ringside reporters doing a heavyweight tournament, like a mythical all-time heavyweight tournament. I think DAZN recently did that. So Joe Frazier and Anthony Joshua. My answer might be controversial here, but look, of course, Joe Frazier on his best night, he could beat Anthony Joshua, but here's what's going to upset some of you. Anthony Joshua on his best night could beat Joe Frazier. He absolutely could. Think of a time that Joe Frazier, undefeated, fought a big, tall, athletic, strong heavyweight, George Foreman. What happened? Didn't do very well, right? I'm trying to think of all the guys that Frazier fought that somewhat resemble, of course there are differences, but somewhat resemble Anthony Joshua. And George Foreman, probably more than any other opponent Frazier fought, resembled him. So Frazier could absolutely get underneath on AJ, and he could land some hooks, some uppercuts, some 45s. He'd get some body work done. And I see a lot of people would say, well, that's what Andy Ruiz did. You guys got to remember, clearly AJ took Andy Ruiz lightly. That was a last-second replacement. And Andy Ruiz, although there's some similarities, he doesn't really fight much like Joe Frazier. So, look, man, that's a closer fight than people think. And just simply saying, oh, Joe Frazier wins, I'm not so sure about that. Would I favor Joe Frazier just because he's way more proven? Of course. Of course I would. But the AJ that beat Ruiz in the rematch, that showed he could box a little bit, he's also showed some decent inside work. He's landed some uppercuts. Look at the uppercut he landed against Klitschko, who doesn't fight like Frazier. You know, I get it. But I just think there's enough wrinkles there, enough size and strength that's a close competitive fight, guys. Trust me. To just say, oh, Frazier would mop the floor with AJ. And by the way, I'd say the same thing with Deontay Wilder. The difference between AJ and Wilder is Wilder's punches are so awkward and so wide. I think Frazier would actually have an easier time getting underneath Wilder's punches. However, if Wilder could land with one right hand, that, it could be lights out for Frazier. So I do think that I'd favor Frazier to beat Wilder more decisively, but I do think that it'd be competitive with AJ. I really, really, really do. So people may not like that answer, but again, it's a style thing, guys. Look at how Frazier, and that was an undefeated Joe Frazier. It's not like that was an old Joe Frazier. It was undefeated going up against Foreman. And Foreman wasn't the, he was a big, strong guy that could really, really punch. And he was an athletic guy too. But you can argue, I'm not saying necessarily, don't get too mad, but you can argue that Anthony Joshua throws straighter, more fundamentally sound punches than Foreman did. Don't shoot me. I'm just saying you can make that argument. So let's see here. Johnny Boy says Frazier had just fought Ali and beat him prior to that loss to Big George. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. He was the legit champion. He was undefeated. And look what Foreman did to him. Are you guys so sure he goes and mops the floor with the Anthony Joshua or any of these, Tyson Fury, even Deontay Wilder? I'm not so sure about that, guys. So now, don't mistake that for me rating any three of those guys higher than where I rate Frazier. That's a different question. You don't rate a guy based on how he would do head to head against other fighters of other eras. You rate a dude with what he did against the best of his era. Clearly, Joe Frazier rates higher than any of the current heavyweights just because of accomplishments. Now, we might be having a different discussion in 2 or 3 years. I'm talking about right now. But that's a good question, man. Someone here with a I can't pronounce this name because it's in, I don't even know what language this is. It's definitely from somewhere in Eastern Europe. Sorry, brother, I don't know. But the question is, hey, Mike, what is your opinion about Dmitry Pirog? His fight with Daniel Jacobs is one of my favorite fights ever. Crazy ability staying in the pocket. I was very, very high on Dmitry Pirog. Good skill set. Could do certain things that people are always going to draw comparisons to Gennady Golovkin. He could do certain things Golovkin can't do. But Golovkin could do certain things Pirog couldn't do. That is why their fight, I think they were supposed to fight in 2012. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. It could be 2013. Nobody wanted to fight Dmitry Pirog after he beat Jacobs. And I mean nobody. His people on HBO were looking all around, went through all the people that they could to try to get him an opponent. And Gennady Golovkin said, yeah, I'll fight him. Well, we're going to give you short money, and you got to come in here and fight here in the U.S. Yeah, I'll fight him. One dude was willing to fight him. And before that fight, Pirog got hurt, and it happened to be a career-ending injury. So here's the thing about Pirog. Very good skill set, could do some things very, very well, could had movement and pocket ability that Golovkin just doesn't have. But did he necessarily have the fundamentals, the jab, and some of the abilities that Golovkin has? No. Didn't see that. Now, maybe he had it, but we'll never know. The thing is, we can only judge him off of one fight. He fought one top-level guy once. He looked great in that fight, but we just don't know. There's just not enough of a sample size to be able to really, truly measure him up against other great fighters. He's one of those guys, it's just what if. You know what I'm saying? What if he never got hurt? Because the potential with that dude was tremendous, but we'll just never know. It's a shame. Anton M1 asks, Mike Tyson, one of the greats or overrated? Depends who you're talking to, dude. For me, Mike Tyson's one of the all-time great heavyweights, but I don't put him in my top 10. I put him in my top 15. I rate guys like Vladimir Klitschko higher than Mike Tyson. Some people think that's crazy. They think that's absolutely crazy. But Mike Tyson is one of those guys that maybe some people underrate him, but I think a lot of people overrate him because a lot of people some people out there think Mike Tyson's the best heavyweight ever. A lot of people have him in their top 5. And I just don't think he did enough. I understand he was the youngest heavyweight champion. I understand he did beat a couple good names, but he didn't have a lot of career longevity. People talk about his prime. It was from like 86 to 89 when the dude was in his 20s. Heavyweights don't mature until they're in their mid-30s. So Tim Nick says, not Vladimir again. Tim Nick hates Vladimir Klitschko when I bring him up. But again, I rate Vlad in the top dozen or so all time above Mike Tyson. And that drives some people crazy. But again, look at who Mike fought and who he beat. Who was at their absolute best when Mike Tyson beat them? Yes, he beat Larry Holmes. Was Larry Holmes at his best? Look at what Larry Holmes was doing the last couple years before he fought Tyson. Okay. Who else did he beat? Top guys. I mean, when he ended up fighting Evander Holyfield, what happened? He's pretty decisively beat. When he ended up fighting Lennox Lewis, what happened? Pretty decisively beat. The other top heavyweights of that era, the really great heavyweights, he fought in a loaded era. The 80s was not loaded, but the 90s sure as hell was. And he was kind of, more on the tail end of his peak prime years. He was maybe past his peak, but still in his prime years during the early to mid 90s. And when he fought, even his late 90s, he was still, I mean, how old was he in the late 90s? It's not like he was in his 40s. When he fought those top dudes, it's not like, I mean, of course the fights were competitive, but it's not like these were 7-5, 115, 113 kind of fights. Holyfield pretty clearly beat him. That's why he looked for a way out in the rematch. And Lennox Lewis, you saw what happened there. Now, of course, that was definitely a past peak, maybe even past prime Mike Tyson, of course. But I'm just saying, guys, when you look at who he beat, and I'm a Mike Tyson fan, of course, but when you really start breaking down who he beat and when he beat them, does that rate top 5 heavyweight of all time? I don't know about that. Now, in terms of excitement, in terms of building the sport of boxing, in terms of being the most popular athlete and all those sorts of things, yes, Mike Tyson might be number 1 all time. People talk about Muhammad Ali being, so well known. And what about Mike Tyson? Mike Tyson, till this day, globally, is more well known than any other boxer right now. Okay, so he's right up there with Ali, and you can make an argument that at Mike Tyson's absolute peak, he may have been more popular than Ali. Again, I'm not necessarily stating that as fact, but I'm saying you can make the argument. So, I mean, and then the longevity. The dude's, now come back and he's like a celebrity. He did his own one-man show. He's been in movies. He's been on TV shows. He had a cartoon. Now he's got an insanely popular podcast. He's got a really, really successful weed business. Do people buy Mike Tyson's weed because it's the best? Or do they buy it because it's Mike Tyson's weed? They buy it because it's Mike Tyson's weed. So the dude, he's, in terms of that, yeah, he might be number 1 all time. But in terms of all-time heavyweights, head-to-head, and then just accomplishments, I don't know if he's top 10. He's certainly not top 5. So, again, he is one of the greats. But depending on who you talk to, some do overrate him, in my opinion. Okay, George Hall. Oh, Tim Nick's going to love this question. George asks, you rate Vlad very high, which is fair enough. However, have you considered he never faced the strongest challenger of his era, Vitali Klitschko? For sure, it was impossible to happen. Nobody expects brothers to fight. But Vitali was the clear standout during Vlad's reign and also diluted the competition for him. Thoughts? It's a fair question, George. However, the argument that he diluted the competition for Vlad, that I don't agree with. I think it's actually the other way around. When Vitali was gone for 4 years, and I've talked about this a million times, Vlad cleaned out the division. Who is Vitali's best opponent? An undefeated Chris Arreola, maybe Corey Sanders, who did beat Vlad. Was that the best version of Vlad? No. Does anyone doubt Vlad in his prime would beat the shit out of Corey Sanders? I don't. I think he would have clearly beat him. But he did lose to him, and Vitali did beat him. But Vitali lost to Chris Bird, and Vladimir beat Chris Bird twice. Now, do I think the best version of Vitali whoops Chris Bird? Yes, I do. Do I think he does it as dominant as Vladimir? No, I don't. Different styles. But if you really look at Vitali's resume, he didn't dilute the opposition for Vlad. Actually, maybe Vitali's best win is Sam Peter, who Vlad beat an undefeated version of. So I don't know, dude. But yes, absolutely. During Vladimir's reign, the second best fighter during that time was Vitali. So yeah, Tim Nick, Jesus, Tim, calm down. I know you don't like Vladimir. He says Vitali outboxed Bird. Stop lying. Who won the fight, Tim? Who won the fight? Chris Bird did. Okay, get over yourself. I'm not saying Vitali wasn't ahead on the scorecards. He lost the fight. Anyway, um, Vitali was the second best fighter of that era. They were never going to fight each other. It sucks. It's unfortunate. But look, you can make an argument. Again, not saying I necessarily agree with this. You could say the second best fighter during Lennox Lewis's era was Riddick Bowe. Those two didn't fight. Now, was it because of Lennox? No. It was because Riddick Bowe ducked him. Riddick Bowe wanted no part of him. But you can make an argument the second best fighter during that era, Lennox Lewis's era, was Riddick Bowe. And those two never fought. So, again, Lennox did beat some great fighters, but he beat Mike Tyson past his best years. He beat Evander Holyfield, probably past his best years. So, look, dude, you can nitpick anyone's resume, but to hold it against Vladimir Klitschko because he never fought Vitali, to hold it against Vitali Klitschko because he never fought Vladimir, I just think that's really not fair. I still rate both of those guys as, all-time great heavyweights. Vladimir's in my top dozen or so. Vitali's in my top 20, somewhere toward the bottom of the top 20. Hayden Burke asks, top 5 middleweights of all time. Doesn't have to be in particular order. Good question. Look, off the top of my head, I actually listed a few names here, but off the top of my head, the top 5 is pretty hard. I kind of look at it in tiers, okay? So like the top tier, of course, Ray Robinson, Harry Greb. Harry Greb might be number 1. I know everyone wants to say Robinson, but I want to rate Robinson more as a welterweight. Because think if Robinson fought today, he'd be a welterweight, right? So anyway, Robinson, Greb, Carlos Monzon, of course, he's right up there. Nito Benvenuti, who maybe some overrate him a bit, but definitely up there in the top tier. Marvin Hagler, of course, Dick Tiger, Stanley Ketchel, B-Hop is up there. Then you kind of get like the second tier just under that. Oh, Gene Fulmer, good shout, Sarah. Sarah LeChuck on the chat says Gene Fulmer, good shout. Jake LaMotta, Tony Zale, Emil Griffith, Joey Giardello, Randy Turpin gets underrated by a lot of people. Marcel Dill, Carmen Basilio, so there's definitely Rocky Graziano. Plenty of guys we could put up there. There's been some outstanding middleweights, but top 5, that's tough. Robinson, Greb, Monzon, those are your top 3. Then after that, the next 2, Hagler, and then the next one. Man, that's tough. I don't know, man. Stanley Ketchel, maybe? I don't know if I put B-Hop in the top 5. I just don't know. What's interesting is when you start to break down these resumes, I know Ring did a story, man, this probably goes back over a decade, but Ring did a story looking at the top, I think like 10 middleweights ever, and looking at their resumes and comparing them to each other. And what was interesting is when you compare Greb's resume to Robinson's, most of Robinson's wins were against career welterweights who moved up. Greb beat more actual middleweight champions, top middleweights. And same thing with B-Hop. Most of B-Hop's big wins were, Oscar De La Hoya started as a lightweight. Don't forget that. So a lot of B-Hop's big wins, and then, of course, Tito, who is, a welter. So, a lot of these all-time middleweight champions, when you look at their resumes, some of these guys beat smaller dudes who moved up. And then you compare it, Harry Greb beat middleweights, actual middleweights. So I probably rate him number 1 all time. Tim Nick in the chat is still talking about the Klitschkos. Jesus Christ, man, get a grip. Okay, super chat pledge from Trent Allred. Thank you so much. A massive super chat pledge. Dude, thank you. Thank you so much, Trent. He says, yo, man, love your podcast. Been watching it for 2 years. Thank you for supporting the podcast. I appreciate that. He says, Alexander Kaishniak looks like the next Ukrainian to make noise. What do you think about all these Uzbek boxers? Ergashev, Madrimov, Kuziev, Giyusov, Jalanov. Wow, man, all those names. Tough. Dude, Trent, I can't thank you enough for the super chat pledge. Thank you so much. I actually haven't seen some of these guys yet. I have to admit, I'm ashamed to admit I haven't seen all these guys yet, or maybe I have and I just don't remember the names. I'm way better with faces, but I've seen most of these dudes. Yeah, look, as I've been saying for a while, the Uzbek fighters, they're going to be the next wave. I really think right now you have a core nucleus of Ukrainian fighters that are doing big, big, big things in the sport. And people focus, of course, on the Usyks, the Lomachenkos, even the Vostiks, but just under them is a group of prospects coming up, mid-level contenders doing very well as placeholders. So the Ukrainians, they're going to keep coming. They're not going anywhere. They're here now, right? And they're going to keep coming. But the Uzbeks are the next wave, right? And they're from the same general area, but they're going to keep coming. You're also going to continue seeing Kazakhs coming as well. And dude, but the Uzbeks, that last Olympics in 2016, I just watched some of those Uzbek fighters and I was like, holy shit. I saw it right then. And I'm telling you, if the Olympics were happening this summer in Tokyo like they were supposed to, the Uzbeks were going to clear out more titles than anyone else. And I still think it'll be that way next year. They're supposed to do the Olympics next summer. They're going to be the top dogs. Better than Ukraine, better than everyone else. Ukraine's still going to take medals. Kazakhstan's going to take medals. The Cubans always take medals. The UK is going to get some medals. I don't know if America will. Maybe one or two, maybe a few of them. But the Uzbeks are the next thing, dude. They're the next wave. And what's great is there's a few of them out there training out in Southern California and working together. And if some of these new guys, particularly after the next Olympics, if they come out and start getting with those guys, because, Beck the Bully and all those guys right now, the kid who just won a title earlier this year, they're kind of starting to move in a little bit. Madrimov will have a title within 12 months. Once that Olympic class from 2021 comes over and starts working with those dudes, that's when they'll be like the next Ukrainians, and they'll take them out. I'm telling you, over the next few years, they're going to be the guys. That's the new wave. And between the two of them, the Uzbeks and the Ukrainians, dude, for the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to be seeing those names all over ratings lists. It doesn't really matter what division, and including pound for pound. It's only a matter of time. In a few years, Madrimov's going to be on the pound for pound list, no doubt, right? And there's going to be other guys to follow him. So great question, great name drops, and thank you again for the super chat. I saw Mark asking if he could call in. Ahmed Aliev, yeah. Mark always on there with the assist. I appreciate it. Mark, you were asking if you could call in. No, I'm not taking calls for this. Actually, I got to jump to a call. What time is it? I'm trying to see. Yeah, I got 15 minutes before I got to jump on a call. So, yeah, Ahmed Aliev already got a title. So I'm telling you, once the 2021 Olympic class, it sounds funny saying that because it's supposed to be 2020. Once they come and start working with Ahmed Aliev, Madrimov, Beck the Bully, those guys, it's just going to get better and better and better. You look at what Igis Klimas built with the Ukrainians and some Russians, kind of like that fighter camp that he's got going on in Oxnard. You're going to start seeing that with the Uzbeks. And then, holy shit, they're really going to start to take over. And holy hell, will people be butthurt and threatened by that. I say embrace it because you ain't going to stop it. It's coming, ladies and gentlemen. It's coming. Okay. Jesus Christ. Tim Nick is in the chat still chatting about Vladimir and Vitali Klitschko. He really does not like Vladimir Klitschko. We get it, Tim. We get it. Okay, guys. I'm getting a text here. I got to jump to my call. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this Ask Me Anything quarantine version. We'll do it again very, very soon. So I may as well break the news here. Monday on the show, Monday on the Neutral Corner, we're going to have Jamel Herring on the show. So 130-pound title holder Jamel Herring. If any of you guys have questions for him, get them in on the comment here on this video below. Jamel will be on the show. He's an awesome human being, a damn good fighter, and it should be a lot of fun. So, all right, guys. Questions for Jamel, questions for myself, for TNC. Get them in. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. I'll see you at the